Hello everyone, welcome back to Super Festival 2025. I am Jordan Sparks, Director of Technology and Workshop Coordinator here at the Hand-Eye Society, and I am once again your host for the Super Festival Super Show. We have an excellent range of talks for you to learn from tonight alongside our showcase of games. If you're as excited as I am, I'm disappointed. You should be even more excited, so make me proud and raise your hype level for our amazing speakers. In the meantime, be sure to check out the Super Festival website to learn more about the over 20 exhibited games we're showcasing in this year's event, more about our stream schedule, and where you can find our Tron arcade machines scattered across the city of Toronto. You can also sign up for our upcoming online workshops on our Eventbrite page, where you can learn about game development with us from anywhere in the world. I also want to give a big shout out to our wonderful sponsors who make Super Festival 2025 possible. Thank you to Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, the Canada Council for the Arts, Clever Endeavour, Charitable Gaming, the Kennedy Road Charitable Gaming Association, the Government of Ontario, and the City of Toronto, as well as the following contributors for their support and their donations in kind, to help make Super Festival 2025 even greater. Well, that's enough of me. Let's get on to the talks and games. Enjoy Super Festival 2025, and I'll see you later.
No matter what I do, I'm stuck on you. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. No matter what I do, I'm stuck on you. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu. I got deja. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. No matter what I do, I'm stuck on you. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu. I got deja. Stay high, can't lie. I just gotta keep you off of my mind. I just gotta stay on my grind. You get the whole day, I just need the night time. I don't wanna fight. It seems like we do this shit and rewind. Seems like you only need some me time, baby. I wish I could freeze time. No matter what I do, I'm stuck on you. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. No matter what I do, I'm stuck on you. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu. I got deja vu. I know my mind ain't playing tricks on me. Right now everything is moving slow. Yeah. This shit is real, I know it ain't no phony. Yeah. Could've sworn I done seen this before. No matter what I do, I'm stuck on you. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. No matter what I do, I'm stuck on you. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu, yeah. I got deja vu. I got deja vu.
So it's been over a week since I arrived here, and I'm still not sure if this house is a gift or a joke. Every night I go to bed wondering who sent me this letter and this key, and I wonder why they did it. I'm leaving behind this tape recording in case I disappear or something happens to me.
The cars, birds, and trees are the key to entering this place.
Who are you? Are you behind all of this?
jokes and everything like that. But, once I started playing it, like really playing it, that's when everything changed. I found these weapons and armor, I'd master them, and my character just kept getting stronger. And the attack combos, once I figured out how those worked, the power was unimaginable. But the story is what got me. It really sucked me in, and it showed me something about myself that I didn't even know was there. And now I don't think I can ever go back.
Sir, this is a liquidation store.
Oh, right,
The tide's rising. Wishlist sunken stones on Steam.
Well, sink me.
Hidden Duck Digital.
Clean getaway. Clean getaway.
Wayfarer 3, this is Mission Control. We're detecting high levels of hallucinogens in the atmosphere on Gliese 667C and abnormalities in your driver's vestibular system. Please take off and return to the nearest space agency outpost immediately.
Okay, left, or left. Wait. Okay, down. No, stop hitting things. Wait. Ship is tilted left. Ribs. Right. Ribs. Left.
deep down we are into play. Just blend with my light. Forget that girl, fuck all those lights. I can see your future, it's looking bright. Just blend with my light. I forget in, they ain't go eyes. He knew I had to flee. He knew I had to free myself, and we know deep down we are meant to play.
This piece is called Beat Stacker. It's supposed to be kind of like a kid's introduction to making music and a little like hello to the creative process for kids in a really approachable way. So it's based off like a kid's block sorting game. You know, you just sort the wood when you're a kid, you have little blocks. So it's like that, except it introduces a musical aspect to it.
What I'm so impressed with is that this was exactly what you wanted to make.
Yeah.
And you like really followed through on like the clarity of your original vision is like right in front of you. It's really impressive.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today for Everyday Excel, using it effectively. My name is Connor Sullivan Stewart, and before we begin, I want to give a big thanks to Hand-Eye Society for inviting me to share with you all things Excel. Now, I want to introduce myself a little bit before we start. I am a software implementation specialist by day, and so I have a lot of my hands in back-end dev, front-end dev, and I spend lots of time working with clients. My primary focus is that working through clients, I'm ensuring that their workflows are working for them and their teams. So if there's ever an opportunity for me to reduce time spent on tasks, frustration, whatever the case may be, you better believe I am all over it. Now, I am also an indie dev by night. So I've been in the business of prototyping games for others for about 8 years now, and I co-own Lonely Golem Games. So this workshop is about utilizing and giving you guys some tools to be able to better use Excel to effectively build out workflows for yourself or your team. This works for as if you're an indie solo dev or you're working with a team, or if you've got some contract work that you've got to get done and you need to share that spreadsheet, you guys can work however which way it needs to be. I'm not going to prescribe specific workflows in this. I'm going to prescribe essentially tools to put into your tool belt and building blocks to kind of build out of. So this way you can build what works for you the best. Let's talk about this workshop itself. So we'll be covering over navigation, going through large data sets in a quick and timely manner. We'll also be going through some common formulas and calculations you can do. We'll also include a few maybe of the uncommon ones like concat, substitute, and XLOOKUP that you might not be familiar with. We'll be doing some conditional formatting so that you can easily identify what needs to be done next or what needs your attention. And then we'll also talk about building a smarter spreadsheet. So kind of using a summary page or something like that to kind of help understand what you're working with. I will say that all the functions that I'll go over, I won't go into too much detail on those. I'll leave that to you guys to Google those. There's lots of details online and even how to use those in effective or different ways than what I'm showing you here today. So let's open up a new spreadsheet. So here we have a brand new Excel sheet. I'm going to increase the percentage maybe to about 160. And this way it'll be a little easier for, everyone to kind of read. Let's begin our first table. Now, I will highlight that a lot of people starting will end up making like a title for the screen. So today, let's do weapons. So maybe this is the weapons database table. And then I can start doing from here. We'll start with UUID. One more, durability, because everyone loves durability for their weapons. So with that, we've got the start of a table here. And I can start typing in things like 1 and 2, and maybe start filling in scimitar. And maybe a long sword, and I can keep working away like this. Now, if you're using Google Sheets, you're going to kind of be doing this because what I'm going to show here next is definitely an Excel thing. Google Sheets does not have the concept of tables, at least since I last checked. With that side, what I can do is I can highlight these guys and I can hit Format as Table. And I can choose any of the formatting that works for me. Now, this is my default. I always choose this. I don't know why. I just like the look of it. And I'll click on OK, making sure that my table has headers is selected. So with that side of things, I have weapons DB. And I've got my UUID, type, name, damage, speed, weight, cost, value, durability. All these are columns. You'll see here too, when you select the table design ribbon opens up right away, and I can see it's table 1. So I'm actually going to rename this weapon. And that way it'll be easier for me to reference later. So we'll definitely see the value of this later. And with that side of things, I just want to highlight a few things as we're building out these tables. A few things that people tend to kind of fall on the sword on, so to speak here. you don't really need these this upper region. You don't have to worry about it because we are defining this as a table. So we don't actually have to know, hey, for rows AA, or sorry, columns AA, BB, and so on and so forth. You don't have to necessarily worry about that with your table side. So if you do want this information, that's great. What I do recommend for users, just because of how things get structured and makes it easier for references later, is just to have everything blank at the top and just start straight up with your table starting on A1. You can have as many sheets as you want, and we will end up having probably about 3 to 4 sheets by the end of this webinar here. So with that side, I'm going to go Control minus. Control minus will delete the things that I have selected. If I select a row, it will automatically delete that row. If I select a cell, it will ask me what I want to do. Do I want to delete that cell and shift everything from the left? Or do I want to delete the row or column? I'm going to hit cancel for now. So Control minus is going to be a strong friend, and you're going to get used to using that if you continue to use that. So with that side of things, maybe I can start putting in some information. So basic scimitar will be its name. And then maybe I will call this a bronze longsword. You'll see here as I'm typing information out, let's say damage is 4, and let's say I want to keep working in the row. So if I start here at 4, if I hit tab, I will go into the next cell, and let's say the speed is 3, weight is, I don't know, let's give it 10, cost 24, and value, let's say it's 16. So essentially cost being what I would spend at a shop versus what I can sell at the shop. And durability, let's give it 100. Now, if I hit enter after going through all this process, I will start in the next row where before I was starting to hit the tab. So this can make my life a lot easier if I am doing large amounts of data entry. So now with the longsword, maybe the longsword is the same damage, but maybe the speed is less. Maybe the weight is a bit more, and maybe the cost, because it's a bronze longsword, maybe it's just a little less. And the durability, maybe it's a bit more. And here I can keep going through that process. I can also, starting with this thing here too, you can see at the bottom right, I can expand this table as I so please. But I don't actually have to worry about that with Excel, because when I start typing in just below it, it will actually automatically increase my table. So I don't necessarily have to keep going through and bronze dagger and continue filling this out. So I don't necessarily have to keep readjusting my table dimensions to keep handling more and more information. I can also automatically add information on the side. So if there was something that I wanted to add, I could do so. Maybe I want to add element. Maybe I'm going to add an element to the game here too. So none, none, and none, because maybe some will be fire elements or water elements, whatever the case is, I can do so. And you can see it automatically uploads it to the table. So here, maybe I'll put my dagger at 4, and I won't spend too much time on this as we've got much more interesting things to talk about than some numbers for weapons that we can maybe imagine. So we've gone through and we're adding a few things, and now we want to make sure that we can easily see everything in one view because now we're getting some stuff that's getting kind of cut off, and we want to be able to see everything. So if I highlight all the columns here and I click anywhere in between where I can see my mouse cursor change and open that up, it's actually going to resize all my columns so that everything is visible. It's going to make life a lot easier for me to read if I'm skimming through this list. And as I'm typing this out, I'm realizing, I'm starting to notice that, hey, I've got bronze and I want to have steel, gold, adamantium. Oh, now I've got to spell that. And, keep kind of going on from there too. Maybe I want to have the metal identified, and it can be a tag for me to use in my system. So maybe special metal, like certain metals will be kind of different or will be treated differently. Or maybe if I'm using some sort of crafting system, I can use these as bronze inventory items. Whatever the case, maybe I want to add a column. So I can right click here and insert and create a new column. And here you can see it automatically updates with column 1 because it doesn't know what I want to name it. And let's call it metal. And here, let's call it bronze. So maybe everything is bronze. Now I'm already noticing here, okay, so my basic scimitar, I probably have to rename that guy. And I want to add a bunch more weapons. So now let's maybe fill in a bit more weapon types. So let's throw in, we got to have a warhammer, a normal sword, mace, flail, and maybe a spear. So I've added a bunch of different weapon types, and I'm going to kind of start doing this basic bronze item here. What I can do, there's a few different ways for this bronze side to be pushed all the way across. A lot of times people will end up copying and then they will paste. So I hit my Control C, I can hit my Control V, and I can do so one by one. I'm going to undo all that. What I can also do is highlight all the cells that I want and Control Paste, and I have all those values there as well. But what I'm going to show is something very helpful here for myself. I'm just going to remove the copy function there. I can actually select this entry and I can drop it down by holding Shift and then arrow key down. And then I can hit Control D. Control D will take the very first entry that I got highlighted and will copy paste it to all the entries below it that's been selected. So it lets me do that in one fell swoop. I'm going to show you a few other cool things to do with how you maneuver with the arrow keys here. But let's talk about the UUIDs next here. So these UUIDs, we've got 1, 2, 3. Now, I know there's always sometimes some confusion on how this drag works. A lot of people do understand that if they hover over that corner where there's that plus sign when your mouse turns to, and you drag it, sometimes it does that counting for you and sometimes it doesn't. Well, what I'm here to tell you here is that it actually bases the pattern recognition off of the cells you've got selected. So in that scenario, I have only selected one cell, so it doesn't see any pattern. So it's just going to do the value itself over and over again. If I select all 3 of these cells and drag down, it's going to follow that pattern. So with that side, I've got my UUIDs updated. I've got my bronze. Now I've got to start typing out all this information. Bronze warhammer, sword, mace, flail. And maybe my first gut feeling is like paste this and then I can either update it here and do bronze, or maybe I copy paste bronze and go through that. What I want to share with you is that there's some formulas that can make life easier, and we can either leave it in so it's dynamic, or we can make life a little easier by doing it and then pasting the values themselves. So we can see here that we want bronze warhammer, and we'll want that for all of these, just to keep that naming convention. So what I can do is equals allows me to say, hey, Excel, this is going to be a formula, and I can type in concat. Now, you might be familiar with concat in other programming languages. If you're not, or if you're not a programmer, that's totally fine. Essentially, it takes a bunch of text fields and it mashes them together into one output. So here in concat, I have this down below. It shows here text 1 and then commas, so I can have infinite amount of text. I'm going to select this field where we can see the square bracket at metal. So it's telling me that in the row that it's at, with the @ sign, the column metal, pull that value. I'm going to do comma. I'm going to add a piece of text, which is just going to be a space. I'll do a comma again, and then I'm going to select Warhammer. So that's that type at. And then I can close my bracket. So here I now have Warhammer selected. Bronze Warhammer is the name, and that's what I want it to be. Now I can also push this and overwrite all cells in this column for this formula. What that'll do is now I can push all these changes to that, and you'll notice that Bronze Scimitar was updated too. Maybe in this scenario I don't need it. I will show this in maybe value a little later because we'll do something with cost and value. I'll undo that and I'll keep this value. What I can do though is in this plus sign, I can drag it down, and because it's a formula and I've only got the one, it's not going to change anything in the formula because all my formulas are relationships with the @ signs. I can then have all this information. And then maybe I do want to spread it up as well. So I can also spread it up as well. And then I have this Bronze Scimitar because maybe I do want it all changed. So now I have a bunch of metals to do. Now, this concat, we'll leave it for now because it's going to make our life a lot easier in just a bit. So if I copy this and paste it, I'll paste it a few times because we'll want a few different metals. So maybe I do steel. And if we go back to Scimitar again, maybe I do gold. And maybe I do... That's how I'm spelling adamantium. You can @ me in the comments. Whatever the case, if I spelled it wrong, I'm just doing it off the top of my head. I can always resize the column, right, by double-clicking on the column size, or I can drag it if I want to give it a bit more space, much like with this guy here too. And I have this list. And I can always drag down, I'll grab these two values, and I can drag that down so my UUIDs are updated as well, and they're static. So I want to share with you guys a few cool tools here with navigating with the arrow keys. So we're going to have to copy and update all this information in the metal. I want to give you some quick ways to navigate through this sheet as it's going to get larger and larger. If you hold down the control in any of the arrow key directions, what will happen there is it's going to take you to the next entry that's a break in the data points. So something that's empty. So if I hold down the control key and say go to the right, I'm going to go all the way to K. Then I can go to the one more to the right to get to L. If I also go, in the columns, same thing, left and right, you'll see that I go back and forth. If I go down, I'm going to go all the way to the last entry in this database because there's no breaks in the data points. And then you can see here, I'm at the end of my table. Now, a lot of people will say, well, no, page up and down is really what you want. But page up and down is literally going page up and down. So if I go down here, you're going to see that I go to 34, 58. I keep going by pages. If I hit Control up, because I've gone page down 2 times or so, I'm actually going to go straight to that first entry, 32. And I can go one more up, and I'm going to go all the way up to the top. So with that, we can navigate through this table much faster. And using that Control-Shift-D tool that I showed you guys, I'm able to do some really cool things. So here, I navigate all the way down to the bottom to steel, right? And then there's a break in the line. I can hold Control-Shift, and then I can hit arrow key down. And I'm going to select everything, including gold, on that last entry. Holding Shift, I can press arrow key up, and I can hit Control-D. And with that, I'm now adding all my steel options. Once again, if I hit arrow key down, Control down, I can grab gold, and I can keep repeating that in a really quick way. So suddenly, I don't really have to worry so much about how much time it's taking. Another thing with that Control, Shift, and arrow key movement is if I want to do the entire column and do something with it, I can do Control, Shift, and arrow key up, and you'll see I select the entire column. I can then just press arrow key down 1, and I've got all the values. Same thing works as if I worked at the top, right? I'm at the name. I go down to the very first entry I want, Control, Shift, arrow key down, and now I have all the values, assuming that there's no line breaks or any entry failures. So now that I've selected this, you'll see that these are all formulas. And now if something were to change, I don't want my name to change. I want to keep these static now. I can totally do that. So if I do Control, Shift, arrow key up, select everything, and I can copy it, right? I have all these cells copied, and it's the formula. Now, if I were to do an import right now, for the most part, I don't know any platform that would take the formula information field and provide that as the value, because essentially what's happening with Excel is there's two kind of data point values. There's this formula in the back end, and then there's the actual value that it's showing. So generally speaking, when you're doing imports, you don't have to worry about the formulas being caught up in the import, but, this is really handy if you want to, harden that information so that there's no dynamic aspect of these names anymore. With this copied, what I will do now is I'm going to do Control Shift and paste, or Control Shift and V. What that means is I'm pasting the values only. So now you'll see that there is no formula. It's only the value itself. Now, speaking of values themselves, let's talk about this cost value options here. You're noticing that, I'm noticing at least, that cost and value always have this relationship where cost is a bit more than value. So maybe for me to at least start with, I want to have value a reflection of the cost value as a basic percentage. I can do that. So instead of me always manually pumping in values, and then like if I change the cost, I'll have to change the value as well, I can change this into a formula. So I can do equals, take the value of the cost, and maybe I'm going to times it by 0. Let's say it's actually only 75% that you get back when you sell it. And I can hit enter. I got 18. I can drag this down, or for me, maybe I want to overwrite all cells. So that's really great, right? I'm getting all these values, and as soon as I put in a number, so let's do 15 for, Warhammer? No, we got at least 36. I can do values right away, and if I want to make changes, you'll see that these are all the same formulas. I pushed it across all the same platform. If I'm like, okay, well, you know what? 75 is not quite working. Let's do 80 because we got to play around with the economy, and it's always like a balancing act. If I hit enter on 80, you'll see all my formulas are updated as well. So now users are getting more value when they're selling it versus the cost of buying it. So with that side of things, what I can do next is with that cost, as I'm updating it, I'm noticing that these values are decimal points, and decimals aren't going to be good for my game. I don't have cents. I just have coins or something along those lines. I always want to have these rounded. I have formulas for that. So I can go in the top here and make the edits here as well, whatever works best for you. But I'm going to go and I'm going to say, hey, I want to do random. And you'll see that I get a lot of different information as I'm typing. I can select, random is not round is what I'm looking for. I can start selecting the different round options. Maybe for purposes of today, I'm going to do round down, but I could just do round as well. But let's just say I want everything to be rounded down to the nearest number. Can't give the players too much money. So I have this number, which is just a formula, right? And then I can tell them number of digits. Now, if I wanted 1 decimal point, I could put in 1, but we're going to keep it to 0, so it's nice whole numbers. Oops. And I'll hit enter. And now you'll see that everything is being rounded down. So now if I do like a 37, it keeps it, right? It keeps rounding it down. It's even whole numbers. If, for whatever reason, I want to look at all the different types of formulas I can use, I can always go into the formulas tab here and find them as well. But I find it's just as easy looking through that drop down. Anytime I'm punching in values, so we just made a mention about random, right? I can look at that, I can start typing it out, and it can tell me what it does and how to use it. And if I'm being completely honest, I'm probably going to Google those values anyways to understand how best to utilize them. I'm going to just automatically kind of fill this information in here. So just for the sake of having more data points, I'm just going to do equals random. I'm going to see that it gives me a 0.84. I'm going to do then, let's just times it by 10. And let's put those in the close brackets. And let's round up and to the value of 0. So it's nice even numbers. You'll notice as I'm doing that, this rand automatically generates every time there's a new update. So there's a few different functions that you might be using in your day-to-day. Just know that things like rand, where it's just calling itself, is likely to update on every calculation. So same thing goes with equals now. So if I do equals now, it will give me a date right away. You'll see that this is in the past. But I want to show that if I do hey, you'll see that it updates as well, right? So the now function, it's helpful, but do know that it's always going to keep updating. If you want like snapshots so that aren't being changed every time you update it, you're probably going to be looking at using Visual Basics, which is a little outside of what we're going to do today, but I do want to highlight that. But we are going to highlight and grab all the different values that we've created. I'm going to Control Shift V to paste just the values. And then that way I have static information to use in my table for later. And what I'll do there too is maybe I'll fill this guy in too. And times 100. And we'll do round up. There. Boop. Boop. And then copy that. So now we've got some values that we can play around with and we can kind of work through. This might also be something that you look at doing to make life a little easier, or maybe you have different formulas for like a sword or weapon. You could create base damage calculations based off the type there, and everything like that. And then maybe we'll just turn all these to none for now. Nothing's magical. So we've got our first table, and now we've got some information. Let's talk about making workflows that are easier for everyone to understand and be able to work in and be able to kind of keep track of. So with that side of things, let's go into making a new sheet. And let's call this summary. All right, and then let's turn this one into weapons. And then let's create another sheet. And I usually call this lists, but you could call it worksheet or anything like that too. This is something that we're going to end up hiding. This is something that we're just going to essentially work on as a source of different data points for our tables and everything like that. So we've added a bunch of information. We have a bunch of different types of weapons, and we've got some naming conventions that we want to make sure. We want to make sure, because when we're programming and ingesting the information, we want to make sure that those types never change. So I don't want to see like a spears. I don't want to see pluralized anything. I want to make sure those are going to be identical. So with that, what I can do is I can start making a series of lists to make my life just a bit easier. And for those who are familiar with Excel and doing lists, there's so many different ways we can do it. In fact, we can build lists differently and dynamically, but this is probably the easiest way for everyone to kind of start with. So we're going to stick with this way. So I'm going to just put it on the side here, and then I can create a list of all the weapons I currently have to start with. What I'll do is I'll actually just make a formula to make my life easier, because if I were to highlight, I could potentially miss something. Or if maybe there's a weapon in between, I could miss that, and then suddenly it's not going to be part of my data validation that we'll see in a bit. So in my lists, I'm going to do equals unique. And then with that, it says an array. I can then navigate over to weapons. If I scroll down just a bit, I can select the type of column, and that only selects anything in this category here. If I were to be at the very top and select a row, you'll see that it grabs that first value as well as anything down below. So it's very helpful to be able to select the column itself, so I'm not getting any unnecessary information. And I can close my bracket there. So what's going to happen here is it's going to do an overfill, is what that is, and it automatically adds all the different unique items here. So if I were to, just for an example here, insert in row 18, and let's just call it my test, right? If I go back into my lists, you'll see that my test is also identified in the uniqueness of that list. It's probably not something I want there, and I'm going to end up, oops, undo that. I'm going to end up making this more static because I don't want anyone to add anything into this table unless it's an approved weapons option. So what I can do here is just the same as before. I can select these overfills and just work them just like I did. So Control C, Control Shift V turns them into just static data points. What I'm going to do next is go back into my weapons sheet. I'll select that column category there. And then in my data validation here. So I'm going to go data. And I'm going to do data validation. I'm going to choose, so right now it's allowing any value. So that's pretty much every cell ever. And I'm going to go into a list. So I'm going to say, hey, you can ignore blanks. That's fine. You're going to provide an in-cell dropdown, which is going to be lovely. And I'm going to select for my source. I'm going to select this whole row. And I'm going to hit OK. So what's going to happen here now is you're going to see there's this dropdown. And now I can select anything here. I always like leaving a blank option just in case users want to delete things or whatever the case is. But now I can select values. Now I didn't select anything underneath, so you don't see that drop down. But if I add a new row to this table, what you will see is that drop down is then expanded to this table. So it's actually linked to the table itself, which is really nice. So now I can continue adding in new weapons and things like that. So if in my list, because I selected the entire column, as I'm updating, I'm like, okay, well, we have a spear, but you know what? Javelin, right? Javelins are solid. We can throw them. Maybe they're an item, or maybe they're a special type of weapon with some throw. That's cool. Let's add javelins. So now in my javelin side will show up in my table. So if I go into weapons, I go into my drop down, I can see javelin. And I can select javelin and kind of go from there. Metals, we're in the same scenario again. So let's just quickly do that. So I'm just going to do metals. And I'm doing it to the side where I'm giving it the title so that I don't add it to my drop-down list. And I just do equals unique. And then this time, I'm going to actually type it out. So I'm going to show you that it is easy because I'm naming things. I can see weapons. And if I hit tab, it'll autofill that. And if I hit square bracket, because it's going to be the entire table right now, I can then select metal, close bracket, close off that bracket, and hit enter, and I got everything. And you're going to see there's this 0. So this 0 is actually identifying that there's a blank entry here. So unique will identify anything that's blank as a 0, and it'll do that one time. I can filter things as well. So if I want to do a unique, I could also select that cell that it's on for the overfill. I could also add filter at the front where we have the weapons metal. And then I could filter, or I could include anything that is weapons metal that is less than or greater than. So essentially does not equals. And then I can just do an empty space, so nothing, and hit enter. Oh, and here we can see I forgot to add another bracket, which is totally fine. This looks like it resolves it, so I'll hit yes to that. And here we can see now I'm filtering it. So I'm only selecting weapons metal where weapons metal does not equal an empty cell. Makes it really easy. So I can copy and paste this again, and away I go. So now I've got bronze, gold, steel, and I will once again select that option. So we'll grab those, data validation, list, select the source. We'll grab that, and I'll hit enter. So now I have all my metal options too. So now I can select that name, maybe bronze, and I can fill it out. I don't want to necessarily mandate what the name has to be based off the metal and anything, because we are always, or at least it seems like everyone has to involve a sword, right? It has that autofill, and maybe it's magical. I need to add magical. I can either talk to the people who have the permissions to, or I can add it myself. Right? And if I type it out, I can see magical, and then I gotta have flame brand, right? And I can fill in the information here. Maybe this one is now fire, right? I can fill in the information, and away I go. So now I'm getting a lot of good information. I'm now telling people, and I can add elements as well, right? I'm now telling people how I want to start filling in this information. No one can put in fake information. So if I'm now somebody's adding in flails or updating, right? They do flails, this value doesn't match. I can't hit enter. I can retry and I can change my name, right? And I can put it into a value that we expect, but I cannot save flails. So now I know when I do my imports, the only thing that's allowed in that row is this column. These are the values. So it makes my life way easier when I'm doing imports, and I'm getting a lot less back to the spreadsheet to figure out what went wrong. Now that I'm getting this information, I've got lots of information here. I want to make sure I can keep an overview of everything. So if I go into data here, I see all sorts of information, right? If I go into table design, I can actually summarize with a pivot table. I can choose a new worksheet. In fact, most of the time you will, but just because I've already made the summary page up, I'm going to select that summary page, and I'll just, throw it onto A1 here. And I'll hit OK. This will start creating a pivot table for me. Now, this can be very confusing because of how pivot table doesn't really talk you through it. We can create graphs and everything like that too with the weapons, but I know a lot of people end up making graphs in like high school with Excel, and that's about as far as they go. My day-to-day, I almost never create a graph, so I'm not going to worry so much about that. I'm going to go in here, but I can select all the different values that I care about. So maybe I want type, so I can see all the different types of weapons. And then maybe I want to understand how many types of weapons we have. So I can even drag type additionally over here, and we have count of type. So now I can see, okay, I've got 4 daggers, but I only have 1 javelin. I have 5 swords and 4 warhammers. So I can keep an eye on how many types of weapons I'm getting. I could also add values or costs. So maybe I wanted to keep an eye on how much these different weapons are ending up costing, and kind of give me an idea on builds. If like certain builds are going to be more costly, do I need to keep that in mind? I have this sum of costs, which is very helpful, but I could also change this as well. Value field setting, I could change this to an average. So now I know an average cost of these weapons. So if my dagger average cost is way lower than, say, the longsword, does that make sense? Maybe, probably. Does it make sense in my game? Gives me this full overview view of the system. Now I'm running out of time, so I quickly want to show just 1 or 2 more things. With weapons here, we've got some empty fields here too. The next thing to make workflows way easier for everybody is using conditional formatting. So there's some additional values in conditional formatting. if I select the entire row, or it can just be on the column itself, that's fine. Conditional formatting, I have already duplicate values. So I can add duplicate values, so it identifies anything with duplicate values. So UUID and name, maybe they all need to be unique. I can make sure that that's happening. So now, if I add in 12, right, you're going to see 12 is highlighted red, right? Warhammer. And then if I do bronze sword, right, that's red. So that's already telling me when I'm adding an entry, oh shoot, that's already in the platform. Where is that? Or, oh shoot, bronze sword's already here. I need to go handle that. I will highlight, just to bounce back and forth here, that this will not update. You'll see that the name, the count is all the same and everything like that. I'll just throw in sword here again. Only I can see, there we go, sword. It doesn't update. So a pivot table, when you select it, pivot table analyze, you do need to refresh the data points. Now it's up to 6. So I do want to highlight that. So now I can say, oh, okay, well, this should be a different UUID, or okay, this should be named something differently. Whatever the case, I can identify those quickly. And that's just per the column. What I can also do is in these rows, I can add, hey, these should never be empty. So I can do conditional formatting. So I can grab this damage. So let's say damage should never be empty. Conditional formatting. I'll make a new rule. I'll use a formula. And with that formula, I can essentially say, okay, well, with this side of things, we start at E2, right? This is where the column starts. So with that, I want to make sure, or you know what? Let's go back. So with conditional formatting, I can also select the entirety of the row here, or sorry, the entirety of the column. I can go into conditional formatting. I can make a new rule, use formula to determine format. And here I can see, well, we start at E1. So we can start here. I can just view here, right? We start at E1 for this row. So what I can do is equals $E, $ tells me, hey, don't move that column. If this column, if your next entry it changes, don't move this column. And then I can do E1 equals empty, right? So essentially, if that column equals empty, I want to format this and fill. And just because the red is just so harsh, let's do a lighter pink. Oh, that's maybe a bit too bright. And hit OK. I can change font color too or whatever, and I hit OK. So now you can see anytime that this cell is empty, it's highlighted red. So I know, hey, something's wrong. I need to update this. It's also when I'm scrolling through it, if there's a value missing, right? It's really easy for me to identify what's missing as I'm scrolling through it. With this bronze javelin, there's a lot of information here that's being captured as well. Because I selected the entirety of that column, you can see that it's failing on a few other aspects. So what I can also do is in this conditional formatting, if I manage rules, I can see all my rules here, my 2 duplicate values and my E1. I can update this guy. So I can use formulas and E1 equals nothing. And we also have this row here, right? So we want to make sure, let's say, if a name exists, right? They've already got the type or whatever. If a name exists, then we start caring about the values. So I can say, if this is E1, then this, right, is D1. So if I could do D1, oh, let's make sure it's the $, D1. And I don't do a $sign on that number so that every entry afterwards works. Is greater than or less than empty, right? Double quotes. So essentially, if D1 is not empty and E1 is empty, to set this value. And I hit OK and apply, right? All these values are gone until I type something out, right? Really nice. Now, let's say, well, actually, I want it for all these values. Like, why would I just do it for one? I don't want to set up 5 different conditions. Totally easy. So conditional formatting, if I once again go to manage rule, just so you know, I can adjust it for the entire worksheet or this just the sheets themselves. This is how I view the views. So with that side, I'll just do worksheet, doesn't matter. I'm selected E to E. So I can either select this, change this up, right? And click and drag, or I could type it out as well. And if I hit apply, right, I'm getting all those values. Really handy. I'm noticing that it's affecting it whenever I see damage though. I want each of these columns. So then this becomes important. So now I can say, hey, E1 in relationship to you, right? E1 keeps going down to E34. So this one's actually checking E34. This cell here at F34 is actually checking E34 because this $ says you can't change. So if I remove this $ from changing, that means E, F, G, and H are all going to check each other, but the D1, it's always going to refer back to D1 regardless. So if I hit OK and apply, you're going to see all these other values are now working too. There's a lot to unpack from here, and I totally understand it if that's confusing. Definitely play around with it. Conditional formatting is so strong because it lets you identify issues that you need to resolve at a moment's glance, right? It can be with or missing values, or maybe it's too big of values. Whatever the case, you can quickly identify anything. I do want to just share 2 more things, and that's with Concat and some cool tools. So let's say with these elements, each of these guys needs their own models and everything like that, and assets. So you could create asset model, asset thumbnail, and asset inventory. And I can use Concat to make my life easier. So if I do Concat again, I can have the directory of the game. So maybe my GitHub repository, whatever. I want to break up my assetting here. So now I have a directory of where all these values should be stored all in one go. And maybe I want to make sure that, hey, well, we can actually have spaces in this platform. We can definitely fix that too. So if in name, I can do substitute. I can take this as the text, the @ name, the old text, which is a space. So I'll quote over a space. Oops. And then I will replace it with the underscore and hit enter. Oops. And I need to close the brackets too. Always key to close brackets. And now I have all this information as I would expect. Now, because these are @ signs at the columns there, when I click and drag this over for the thumbnails and asset information, you're going to find that this goes over to metal and damage and everything like that. What you can do is that you can select this. So I'm just doing Control A and copy. And then if I actually just paste the formula, it's going to be the same thing, right? And then with this, maybe instead of models, it's now thumbnails, right? And maybe for the asset information, if I post this here too, I can work up here too if that makes life easier. I can then go, okay, well, instead of models for that one, it's inventory icons. And then I can select these columns and I can expand them however which way I need to, right? So now I have all the different directories for every item. So now I can leave that dynamically too, so that when I add a new weapon, ice brand, of course, we've got to have an ice brand too if we've got a fire brand, right? It automatically creates the directory so that my team knows where these things should be stored. And maybe I want to switch it up too, where I'm going to say, hey, we're going to do a massive changeover where we store all of our information, especially if it's early days, right? I might want to have assets and then maybe everything for the weapons behind it. I can then update that too, right? I just paste and cut. Oops. Right. And I can update this in very short time for all my entries. And, you know, if I was thinking to, I could maybe paste it so that, oops. Right, the concat breaks it up even further so that I don't have to do this as much. That's fine too, right? There's all sorts of ways to the solutions. So I'm building out those with concat. Final last thing, XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP is your friend. If you want to make a lookup table as well, just on a quick view, you could easily do that. If I do equals weapons, right? And if I do hashtag headers in my entry, I will get all my headers for that table. I can format it if I want. I can maybe even call this lookup value. Right. I have all my values here. I can then even do a data entry item. So if I do data validation, and maybe for whatever reason, I need a tool to make my life easier to look up all the UUIDs, right? I can go into the source and I can grab all the UUIDs, right? I have all my UUIDs here. And then if I do at this column here, XLOOKUP, say this is my lookup value. I'm going to say, hey, use that lookup value to look at this UUID. So find that matching UUID. And when you find that matching UUID, respond with, maybe I want the entire table, right? So I can grab all the entries, or maybe I only want a few entries. Maybe I don't care about assets. Whatever I need for that tool, right? And then if it's not found, I could even say UUID not found. And I can tell the match mode, and I want exact match, right? Because I'm using UUIDs, and I can hit enter. So with that, we have a UUID of 0 being found, right? That shouldn't be too confusing because we have no entry for IceBrand, right? So if I do 35, UUID is not found because it's empty. But if I select any of these entries, it will automatically fill out this information. If I wanted to, and I just wanted the entire table, I could just do weapons, right? And that fills out everything. Right? So I can create a bunch of tools with lookups to help me process this platform, to be able to treat this information and everything like that. I know it might be a little confusing. It's definitely one of those, I'm sure it'd probably be best if you can pause it for a moment and, you know, take it in or go back. So definitely take your time with that platform. I will release this spreadsheet as where it's at right now, as of the time of this point. So you can also download and view it. But this is going to be your starting point to kind of understand how to use Excel. The last thing I'll share with you is don't be afraid to hide or lock sheets. If you're working with large amounts of team members and things like that, you don't want them to mess around with your sheets. You can definitely lock or hide these sheets. So you can protect a sheet, but you can also just hide it. A lot of the times, for whatever reason, no one looks to unhide sheets. It's there. It's still operating. You'll still see the drop downs available, but you can't see that sheet. If you click on these sheets and you click on unhide, you can see anything that's hidden, open her up, and you'll see they're right back there. So don't be afraid to hide calculation sheets, whatever the case is, so you can pull additional information. You can use XLOOKUP to pull information, to look at other aspects. You can use unique to identify all sorts of different data points as well. You can use filter to hide things that you don't care about, or when you're calculating to find those. Concat to make your life easier, especially when you're dealing with a lot of strings. And then you can also use a bunch of maths as well. So you can use maths, you can round it down in the sheet so you don't have to worry about it. And we did a times 0.8%. You could put in your summary sheet the cost valuation, right? You can put in a variable there so that variable calculates that in the sheet. So if you want to do fine tuning and you want this value to be static, you can definitely do so, right? Whatever you want, you can do with Excel. Now that said, you might want it programmatically to change that value. So maybe that value doesn't matter anymore and you can delete that column. You can definitely do that too. I just want to give you guys a bunch of tools so that you can start building better spreadsheets. If you have any questions or anything about this seminar here as well, you can definitely fire me off a message at connor@lonelygolem.ca, or you can follow us and send us any sort of socials. We can respond on that too. I'm always happy to help, or I can even look at spending some time and building out sheets for you. I do offer those as services too, but always happy to talk shop about Excel and things like that too. So please play around with Excel, work with it however which way you like. And just because we're at the end of the seminar here, I did see there that my sheet has not saved. Definitely, when you're working on your sheets, definitely save. Make sure that you're saving these sheets and have that autosave turned on. And of course, if you're working with a team, make sure that cloud syncing is working as well. Otherwise, you might be in a bit of a world of pain. All right, everyone, thank you so much for spending so much time with me today. I hope you guys learned something, or at the very least took away one hotkey. Find some hotkeys that work for you. I hope you guys had a fun time with it. I know it's a fun time in Excel sometimes doesn't match with everybody, but it's a really powerful tool. Don't underestimate it, and don't feel like, oh, I can't use Excel because people complain about how everything's in Excel and it should be a database. Don't worry about that. If you're doing this for an indie game, it's totally fine. Stick to the Excel table. Import that Excel sheet on export. Whatever the case is, that's totally fine. Don't feel like you have to make database tables to handle this type of information. Unless you're like really excessive, it should be totally fine. I wouldn't worry so much about it. So with that side of things there, my name is Connor Sutherland Stewart, co-owner of Lonely Golem Games. Check us out on itch.io at lonelygolemgames.itch.io. Send me an email at connor@lonelygolem.ca. Have a great rest of Superfest 2025. And once again, thanks to Hand-Eye Society for having me on today. I hope you guys have a great one. Bye.
wait for me. Whew. I'm Marco. Nice to meet you. Wait a minute. You're Ava, right? I mean, the Ava?
Do they understand what you're doing?
You mean climbing? There's no way they could get it.
The mountain is in my gut, deep inside. There's only the mountain.
Humanity is driven by curiosity. We are never satisfied with what we have. We never stop gathering. We build. We expand. We explore. But we are not the first civilization to arrive here. We all share a similar path. But will we have a different future? We will build our own wonder.
As creative practitioners, we exist in this really interesting period in history, which has been defined by the rapid advancements of technology. It can feel at times that we are these small, insignificant beings living amongst these giant, incomprehensible beasts, and it's up to us to try and decide how we fit in this world. Lately in my work, I've been asking the question, what separates the man from the machine? More and more creative fields are becoming streamlined and automated, and while this can have plenty of benefits to an artist's workflow, what effect does this have on the industry as a whole? Fortunately, these questions aren't new, and they've been raised by artists for a very long time. There's this saying that history often repeats itself, and it's important to acknowledge this because by studying these patterns, we can make better decisions in the future. Thinking about this topic, I'm reminded of my design history class in my undergrad, and in particular our study of the arts and crafts movement. This design movement dates back to the times of the first Industrial Revolution, and I started to notice some patterns emerging regarding those positions artists found themselves in back then and where we are now. So I decided to look into what exactly this movement believed in, why they create, and most importantly, how they create. And what I found was what it all boiled down to, what emboldened these artists to make art. It was the importance of process, the act of doing. It wasn't about the destination, it was the journey that fueled the soul. So what I want to do, and importantly what I want to show you, is how I can kind of piggyback off of this work done in the past and see how we can take the lessons learnt then and apply it to our own practice as an exercise in methodology. And we can see how that can strengthen a body of work and improve the communication of ideas. Let's take a closer look at some of these concepts. Like I mentioned earlier, the arts and craft movement existed as a counterculture to modern capitalistic society, and William Morris in particular became the figurehead for anti-industrial artisans. They realized that they were soon to be outperformed in the eyes of the average consumer, and they needed to find ways to recontextualize their work. Charles Robert Ashby, another notable figure of the movement, started to unpack their feelings in chapters in Workshop Reconstruction and Citizenship, saying that we talk of a piece of machine-made work as soulless. What a deal we mean when we say that. And soulless is a key word you often hear in these sorts of discussions. 40 years later, German Jewish philosopher Walter Benjamin refers to this as a devaluing of the aura of a work of art in his essay, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. By making any attempts to recreate what was once handmade outside of the original personal and cultural context is simply inauthentic. Now, I can agree with both of these sentiments, and this is the kind of lens I was looking for in my own creative practice. Like I said, this is a confusing time and it can be hard to stay motivated and to remember why we do what we do. Now, I'm not interested in smithing jewelry like William Morris, and I'm also not too sure I could sell that on Steam. So in order to modernize these philosophies, we need to strip these ideas down one step further if I'm to apply it to the things that I do, which is making games. To start to show you how I plan on doing that, let's take a look at a couple existing examples I have in mind. Hypnospace Outlaw is a 2019 puzzle game developed by Jay Tolan, pronunciation, set in an alternate reality 1999 where people enter a fictional web browser in their sleep. The players enter as a moderator of the online community, fulfilling tasks by browsing user-made websites and flagging copyright violations, spam, and harassment. The game's interface is constructed to resemble Web 1.0, particularly the haphazard styles of GeoCities websites, in which a large portion of online traffic was directed to user-generated content online. The visual aesthetic was an essential component of the game, and a large part of the development process adhered to the same constraints of the time period. I'm talking limited screen pixel resolution and image compression forced onto users because of slow bandwidth. Tolan also discusses in an interview with Rock Paper Shotgun that the creation of the game's dozens of fictional users and interlinking web pages were built up over time organically, much like the genesis of neighborhoods in GeoCities. While this is getting closer to a practical use of the theories I'm covering here, I'd argue this is more closely an example of hauntology, which is described as the aesthetics of the past being brought into the present in the pursuit of a better future. The means of creating this aesthetic, however, is not necessary to the idea. So we're almost there. We're learning it's not just about reviving old aesthetics. We need to focus less on the inception of the idea or on the creative output, but set our sights in the middle zone here, because that's where the magic happens. And that, my friends, is what we in the biz like to call process ontology. This is the philosophical acknowledgement of the fundamental importance of process over things. My games, or the movies you love, the shape of our coastlines, nothing is static and everything exists as a series of interconnected relationships, ever changing and evolving. I didn't think I'd manage to squeeze in a Kamala Harris quote right now, but she really was right. You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you. Anyways, I suppose now is as good a time as any to introduce you to my game, Cyberpedia.
Cyberpedia. Buckle up for a trip through time. Cyberpedia. Be careful not to blow your mind.
Cyberpedia is a fictional 90s era point-and-click edutainment game where players navigate a virtual museum to learn about historical art from around the world. The early internet was an exciting frontier for adults and children as it made large amounts of knowledge easily accessible. Cyberpedia was also designed to act as a port to the internet, which presented its information in a skeuomorphic format, as a bridge between traditional ways to engage with knowledge like museums and libraries, and this new frontier of online exploration through websites. As you boot up this old game, several decades have passed since Cyberpedia was last connected to the internet. This leads to several issues with the game, which its main character, Bookworth, experiences alongside the player. Sculptures and paintings have returned, altered, or broken, which the player must work to identify and correct alongside Bookworth. While not directly being inferred, the incorrect links present in Cyberpedia result from the introduction of artificial intelligence and generative art. With the rise in popularity of services like ChatGPT and Midjourney, content produced in part or wholly with AI contributes to a significant portion of the information uploaded online, calling into question the ethics of this technology and its effects on authenticity and the reliability of information. And in a creative sense too, in the same way William Morris's handmade textiles were threatened by automation, contemporary artists and writers are at risk of replacement by artificially generated images and text. In fact, while Morris was a part of the first industrial revolution, the rise in AI can be considered the fourth industrial revolution. So we find ourselves in a similar moment in history that asks artists to evaluate their art and sense of worth in the industry. So in this practice-based research, how did I set out to employ the theory of process in my work, and how was I going to use that to support themes I was exploring in my game? Well, to answer that question, I would like to introduce you to my friend. So here's my friend. This is my iMac G3. If you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself. Well, yes. Now, this line of computers were very popular in the early 2000s, which is around a time period that I find myself quite attached to, mostly because of nostalgia. I love making things that call back to this era of technology, in large part because the subject matter I talk about is so contemporary that it really highlights the contrast between the online landscape now versus kind of when the internet was first created. I thought to myself, if I'm going to make a game emulating a 90s point-and-click aesthetic, why not use the same tools someone back then would have? Cyberpedia was partly created through the 3D program Bryce. This modeling, rendering, and animation engine was first released in 1994 and continued receiving updates until Bryce 7 in about 2010. As Cyberpedia's visual aesthetics was built around the style of 90s computer graphics, as a fun exercise, I decided to generate the visuals for this game with similar resources as the generation it was based upon. This meant embracing the shortcomings of the program. Something that would take 2 steps in Blender would take like 5 in Bryce. But then I also got the satisfaction of learning something new. I got to try out these new tools, which I'm surprised don't come in every 3D program. I get to appreciate the UI design of legend Kai Kraus, whose graphical interfaces helped the transition between the physical and the digital. Process ontology became a crucial component in presenting a message that discussed the impact AI had on the online space. The game offers an argument against the use of AI, where design decisions were made that meant avoiding the use of any AI assistance was intentional. It would be no problem for models like ChatGPT or Midjourney to be prompted to generate landscapes in the style of 90s CGI. However, as I argue for the importance of the act of making as a part of creating, this result would have been unsatisfactory on this level. I've experienced this firsthand as well, in having conversations with others about this game. It was great to see people's reactions when I explained my process. Conversations are more engaging, and I can hear about other people's experiences with this stuff as well. I imagine if someone asked me how I made everything and I just said AI, they'd be like, oh, cool. And that's about it. I guess it just feels like an unfinished thought. Everyone can still go ahead and enjoy AI generated stuff, of course, but what enthuses me is, with art and things like that, it's being able to see the work being put into it. It's being able to hear about the problem solving someone went through to reach their outcome. And by putting more effort into the technique, I think it makes for a much more enriching and rewarding experience. Cyberpedia has been a really fun and rewarding experience for me, getting to carve out my own niche by using retro software and operations to reproduce a visual aesthetic in line with the style of games I enjoy making. It seeks to answer the question, is there still a place for content online that resists the shift in the internet and its decentering of human-made work? And I think there is a lot of positive ways to answer that question, to find community and humanity in the digital age. And what I wanted to share with you today through my research and exploration was how embracing process was what did it for me. And I hope through this that you stop and remember to enjoy the ride as well.
Whew, and that's the end of today's talks. We hope you enjoyed the festival and learned a lot. We're not done yet, though. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for more Super Festival goodness. In the meantime, be sure to check out the Super Festival website to learn more about the over 20 exhibited games we're showcasing in this year's event, more about our stream schedule, and where you can find our Tron arcade machines scattered across the city of Toronto. I'd also love to give a big shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, the Canada Council for the Arts, Clever Endeavour, Charitable Gaming, the Kennedy Road Charitable Gaming Association, the Government of Ontario, and the City of Toronto, as well as the following contributors for their support and their donations in kind, to help make Super Festival 2025 even greater. Be sure to check out the games of Super Festival, and I'll see you tomorrow for more insightful game talks. Good night, everyone!